All right, you're watching Global News. Coming up next, we have your top stories. Stay with us.
This is Global News.
Hello, and thank you for watching Global News on this Tuesday, November the 5th. I'm Miranda Anthesel, and here are the top stories we're following. It is Election Day in the U.S. Voters heading to the polls to cast ballots for candidates deadlocked in what appears to be a neck-and-neck race. A labor dispute in BC once again bringing container traffic to a grinding halt as BC's maritime employers lock out the unionized port foremen who had been poised to strike. We'll have the latest. Lowering of the key interest rate not necessarily bringing relief. A new report shows 2025 could bring a wave of mortgage delinquencies across the country. Election Day in the U.S. is finally here. The race for the White House all comes down to this. Last night, the candidates, former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, made their final pitches to voters after a multi-day blitz through the 7 battleground states that could decide the outcome of the 2024 election. Jared Hill has more.
An Election Day tradition, the tiny town of Dixville knocks New Hampshire with the first results of the 2024 race. The 6 voters split between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris in what's proving to be a razor-thin election. In Grand Rapids, Michigan,
are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
Trump, revisiting his final campaign stop from 2016 and 2020, had the last word with a late-night rally after stumping through North Carolina and Pennsylvania.
As your president, I will fight for you every single day with every breath in my body.
Are you ready to make your voices heard?
Harris went all in on Pennsylvania, closing out a multi-stop tour of the state with star-studded concert rallies in Pittsburgh, then from the base of the famous Rocky Steps at the Philadelphia Art Museum.
I pledge to always put country above party and self, and to be a president for all Americans.
Already more than 81 million Americans have voted early this election, with states like Georgia and North Carolina shattering records. Still, a lot of folks say they plan to vote today.
I want to do mine in person because I know it counts.
I'm old school, so I wanted to vote on the day of, as I normally do.
Trump is also expected to cast his ballot later today in Florida. Tonight, he and running mate J.D. Vance will watch the results come in at Mar-a-Lago. Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz, will be in Washington, D.C. at Harris's alma mater, Howard University. Jared Hill, CBS News, Alexandria, Virginia.
Law enforcement agencies across the U.S. are beefing up their presence to thwart any election-related violence. The possible threats include both domestic and international, in person and online. Naomi Ruckham has a look at the security measures voters will see at the polls today.
Election Day is here, and law enforcement is working to prevent another 2020 debacle from marring election integrity. In Washington, D.C., businesses are boarding up. Extra fencing has been set up outside the White House and the vice president's home. And the FBI's Election Security Command Center is running around the clock, on the lookout for any and all potential security threats.
Those threats include criminal threats, such as threats to election workers, foreign malign influence, cyber threats, and acts of domestic violence.
In the battleground state of Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia District Attorney had this warning for anyone attempting to interfere with the voting process.
Anybody who thinks it's time to play militia, F around and find out. We do have the cuffs, we do have the jail cells, we do have the Philly juries, and we have the state prisons.
During the last presidential election, Maricopa County became the center of election conspiracy theories about a, quote, stolen election, and state officials faced hecklers and threats.
Hopefully 2024 will set a different precedence, that Maricopa County isn't in the spotlight, and that our nation starts looking at the need for respect to each other and the respect to this process.
With Election Day finally here, Polling officials are working to reassure Americans who plan to vote in person that they will be safe at the polls and their ballots will be counted. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News.
Americans will go to the polls today to cast their ballots in a hotly contested and razor-tight election. The polls have it basically at a dead heat. Global's Mike Armstrong is in Pennsylvania, the biggest of the 7 swing states that will decide the presidency.
If you want to know how important this state is, one way to tell is to look at the agenda of the candidates on the last day of this campaign. Kamala Harris crisscrossed Pennsylvania Monday. She wrapped here in Philadelphia after 3 other events in the state.
It is my pledge to you to always put country above party and self, and to be a president for all Americans.
Donald Trump started his day in North Carolina and wrapped in Michigan, but in between, he held 2 rallies in Pennsylvania.
Think of this, though. We're just one day away. Oh, we've been waiting for this. I've been waiting 4 years for this.
Now, no swing state has more electoral college votes than the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. To win, a candidate needs 270 votes. This state has 19. It is very tight. For both campaigns, Pennsylvania is winnable. One change this time around in this city is where ballots will be counted. In 2020, the downtown Philadelphia Convention Center was used, and as the counting dragged on, became a hub for protests and controversy. The counting is now being moved to a more remote location, a permanent facility in the northeast section of the city, a place where access can be better controlled and potential crowds kept further away. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Philadelphia.